You want to know what makes a man silently attractive? It's not posture, not eye contact, not the perfect quote tattooed on your chest. It's the things you do when no one claps, the habits you keep in the dark, the way you carry pain like it's been folded into your jacket lining. This isn't about being liked. It's about being respected without saying a damn thing. There's a way to move through this world without chasing anyone and still have them lean in. Not because you're charming, because you're unreadable, calm, unreachable. This isn't confidence. It's composure after collapse, presence after pain. It's 15 habits that don't beg to be noticed, but can't be ignored. You're not here to perform. You're here to pull. Darkside Demeanor isn't a personality. It's the armor built when you finally stop apologizing for your silence. Let's begin. 1. The disappearance begins. You ever get so tired, you stop yelling. Not tired like sleep. Tired like everything's been taken from your hands before you could even form a fist. You don't even want revenge. Just distance. Just silence. That's where it begins. Not with a plan. Not with purpose. Not with some self-help bullshit taped to your mirror. It starts when you look around and realize no one's coming. No one cares. And even if they did, what would they do with the weight you carry? See? They all think disappearing means weakness. But I know the truth. You vanish when you're done performing. You vanish when you've been too visible for too long. And none of them ever really saw you anyway. You get tired of being understood. Tired of being explained. Tired of justifying your silence to people who can't handle their own. So you pull back. Not because you're lost, but because you're finally done pretending you're okay. That kind of silence. The kind that grows from rot, from betrayal, from that invisible betrayal of self every time you said, "I'm fine." It becomes armor. You stop broadcasting. You start observing. And when that shift happens, everything changes. They'll call you distant. They'll call you cold. But none of them will say the truth out loud, that your absence hurts them more than your presence ever did. Because you took your story with you. You took the version of yourself they got used to consuming, and you buried it beneath layers they'll never dig through. Tell me something. Quietly. Right now. Are you disappearing because you're broken, or because you're becoming something they no longer deserve to witness? Leave a mark below. One sentence. No explanation. See, the world doesn't know what to do with a man who doesn't ask to be seen. They panic, they label, they chase. But by then, you've already shifted shape. You've stopped being a name in their phone. You've become a force, a feeling, an unease that creeps in when they remember how you used to laugh, how you used to answer, how you used to be always available. But not anymore. You're not healing. You're not hiding. You're building something with no blueprint, no applause, no fucking updates. Let them wonder. Because this is the part where the quiet becomes heavy, where the man they forgot becomes the ghost they can't outrun. And you just keep walking into the dark. No explanation, no closure, no final line, just the hum of your own breath and the slow, clean burn of not needing to be found. 2. The death of needing approval. There's a moment you don't talk about. The one where your soul clicks. Not forward, not back, just stops. And right there, in the stale quiet of nobody watching, you feel it. The weight of needing to be liked dies. It doesn't go out with fire. It rots. Quietly. Somewhere between the last fake laugh and the 100th time you swallowed your truth, just to keep the peace. Approval? That shit's a leash dressed up as love. And you wore it so long, You forgot what your own voice sounded like. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You nodded when your instincts howled, no. And you kept giving pieces of yourself to people who were only hungry because you made it easy to feed. They liked you more the less you were you, and you let them. Because you were starving for a kind of affection that felt more like anesthesia than connection. You weren't living. You were being digested, but no more. Something broke, or maybe something remembered, that you weren't built to be liked. You were built to last. And now, you can feel the hunger leaving your bones, the craving, the itch to be seen, validated, applauded. It's still there, but quieter now, like a dying animal too tired to bite. What replaced it isn't confidence, it's not peace, it's something colder, cleaner, more honest. You start moving differently, not to prove anything, just to breathe without explaining. You let people misunderstand you. You let them be disappointed. You let them walk away. And in that letting go, you get lighter. Heavier too. Lighter in your skin. Heavier in your presence. They don't know how to hold that kind of man. The kind who doesn't flinch when he's left behind. The kind who doesn't beg for belonging. The kind who doesn't perform. Tell me, when did you first realize their approval was killing you? Say it in the comments, or don't. But if you've felt it, you already know the answer. Here's the thing no one warns you about. Once you stop needing to be accepted, you become dangerous, not reckless, not cruel, just unreachable. They can't guilt you, can't bait you, can't control you with praise or punish you with silence. Because when approval dies, your decisions get sharp, your standards become lethal, and the way you cut people off, without hate, without noise, feels like a storm never announced. No closure, no speech, just absence. That's power, and it terrifies the ones who used to feed on your softness. They'll call you cold, distant, arrogant. But what they're really saying is, you're not addicted to our validation anymore, and that makes you hard to use. So be hard to use. Let them miss the version of you that was easy. Let them whisper. Let them feel that silent, sharp edge of a man who's finally done performing. Because once approval dies, you don't need to announce yourself. You just walk in, and the air shifts, and no one knows why. 3. Building the invisible gravity. There's something they don't teach you. Not in school, not in books, not in all the pretty little videos telling you how to own a room. You don't need to own anything. You just need to pull. Not with charm, not with words, with weight. The kind you don't show, but everyone feels. That's the trick no one talks about. The man who pulls without touching, who speaks without noise, who gets noticed by being the one who doesn't need to be. I'm not talking about confidence. That's a cheap cologne. This is different. It's presence, raw, unpolished, heavy like smoke before the fire. You walk in, and the air gets denser. No flash, no posture, just stillness that hums like a threat too quiet to name. You ever see a man like that? He doesn't smile first, doesn't rush to shake hands. He leans against the wall like it's his, breath slow, eyes steady. And suddenly, everyone else starts adjusting, clearing throats, fidgeting with sleeves, talking louder, trying harder, because they feel it. The gravity, that invisible pull coming from a man who doesn't owe the room anything. You don't chase it, you build it. In silence, in shadow. It starts when you stop explaining yourself. When you look someone in the eyes just long enough for them to blink first. Not because you're trying to win, but because you've got nothing left to prove. And that is magnetic. There's no script for it, no formula. But I'll tell you this, your voice gets quieter, the more your presence sharpens, you say less. People listen more. You stop filling silences, and those silences start working for you. Because in a world where everyone's yelling, the one who whispers carries the edge. But this takes pain and patience. You have to eat your own noise until your energy starts speaking louder than your mouth ever could. Every time you resist the urge to impress, every time you stay calm in chaos, every time you choose restraint instead of reaction, you thicken the air around you. You become felt, not seen. And they won't know what it is. They'll just know they don't want to say the wrong thing around you. Not because you're violent, but because you've buried something they can't read. Have you ever noticed people act different when you say nothing? Drop it below. One sentence. Don't decorate it. See, gravity isn't built from ego. It's built from absence. The absence of need, the absence of noise, the absence of giving a damn what they expect. You want presence? Good. Then lose the performance. Lose the smile you use to hide your teeth. Stop explaining your silence to people who never earned your voice. Build that tension. Let them feel it. Because when you carry yourself like nothing can pull you off center, you become the thing they orbit, and they won't even know why. They'll just lean closer, talk slower, smile tighter. And you'll be sitting there, quiet as sin, watching the world rearrange itself around a man who didn't ask to be seen. 4. The aura of not needing anyone. They call it loneliness. You call it peace. But not always. Not at first. At first, it's suffocating, like standing on the edge of something ancient and empty, and realizing you're the only one left who remembers how to stand. No applause, no anchor, no echo. Just you. And the slow unraveling of everything they told you you needed. You know what I'm talking about. That moment when even your own shadow feels like too much company. And something inside you, quiet, stubborn, half dead, says good. Let it go. Let the calls stop. Let the messages stay blue. Let them wonder where you went. Because needing no one isn't about hating people. It's about surviving the moment you realize they were never the cure, only the distraction. See? When the house burns down, you don't save the portraits, you save the foundation. And sometimes, that means walking out alone. People will call you cold for it, call you dangerous. They'll say you're shutting down, say you've changed. But what they're really feeling is the absence of your dependency. You're not warm and bendable anymore. You don't flinch, you don't ask, you don't orbit. And that unsettles them. Because you've stepped into the rarest thing a man can wear. Self-contained silence. You don't reach, you don't chase. You sit still and let the world move around you. Not out of spite, not out of bitterness, out of knowing, out of truth. You know now. No one's coming to fill the space inside you. And the moment you stopped hoping for it, you started filling it yourself. Brick by fucking brick. Tell me, what's the loneliest thing you've ever learned to love? Don't explain it. Just write it below. You'll know if it's honest. And here's the part they never believe until it happens. You reach a point where solitude stops echoing and starts vibrating. Where your energy doesn't lean anymore. You become a wall, a boundary, not hard, but solid. They try to seduce you with chaos, try to pull you into their noise, but you don't answer. Because you're not avoiding connection, you're protecting alignment. It's not that you hate people, you just refuse to rent out your soul for company. They want the version of you that doubts himself when left alone. But that version is buried now. And this new one? This one doesn't knock. This one doesn't explain the silence. This one wears it, and the silence wears him back. You walk through rooms now with no need to be invited. No urge to explain where you've been. No hunger in your eyes, just stillness and presence and something heavy behind your ribs that doesn't belong to anyone anymore. That's the aura. Not loud, not performative, just the quiet truth that you've already buried the man who used to beg for company. And what rose in his place doesn't need saving, doesn't need praise, doesn't even need to be understood. It just needs space, and the occasional shadow, and a silence deep enough to remind it. You were always the one you were waiting for. Let that sit. Let it bruise. Let it burn. Don't look away. 5. Weaponizing composure in a chaotic world. They don't notice you at first. Not really, because you're not flailing, not barking orders, not panicking, not playing their game. And that makes them nervous, because composure is a threat, a quiet one that doesn't need permission to wreck everything they pretend to control. You walk into a room on fire and don't even flinch. They feel that. Before they even look up, they feel it. Because composure in a chaotic world isn't peace. It's war with the volume turned down. See, they taught you that emotion makes you real, that yelling makes you heard, that breaking plates and screaming into the dark somehow proves you're alive. But what if the truth is worse? What if you feel everything and still stay still? That's the danger. That's the weapon. To be the one man in the room who could erupt, but doesn't. They don't know what to do with that, because people expect reactions. They expect flinching. They expect the predictable unraveling they're used to poking out of you. But when you stop playing puppet, when your strings go limp, they start fumbling. You become unreadable, unshakable, and in a world addicted to feedback, you become famine. I know you've been there. That moment when the chaos is begging you to bite, and something deeper says, don't. Not out of fear, out of power. Tell me, when's the last time you didn't react, and it shook someone anyway? Leave it below. Keep it raw. See, composure isn't silence. It's presence, sharpened down to the bone. It's the art of hearing every insult, every lie, every manipulation in their voice, and not handing them a map to your buttons. They want a performance. You give them stillness. They want chaos to ripple through you. You let it die at your feet, and in that refusal, you win. Not in the way movies show it. No victory music, no applause, just that subtle shift, the twitch in their eye, the way they suddenly forget what they were trying to prove, because you refused to get pulled into their storm. You stood still and watched them drown in it. But here's the cost. That kind of composure, it's forged in moments nobody saw. The 3 a.m. pacing, the fists clenched in your own pockets, the jaw wired shut while the room spun with bullshit. You earn it, one betrayal at a time, one heartbreak, one test, until finally, your face becomes a locked door with no welcome mat. You can still feel, still bleed, still love, but you no longer let those things become weapons in someone else's hands. You don't owe the world your reactions. You don't owe them your storms. Just a steady gaze, a breath they can't interpret, and a silence that feels like the end of something they didn't even know was beginning. And the beauty is they'll talk, they'll guess, they'll accuse you of hiding. But you're not hiding. You're loaded. You're loaded with everything they hoped would break you, and you're holding it like a blade behind your back, not to use, but to remind them, you could, you won't, but you could, and that's what keeps them honest, or at least nervous. Now sit with that. Let the world keep screaming, and you Just breathe. Like nothing outside you deserves to move what's finally solid within. 6. The art of making people chase clarity. Stop explaining. That's where it begins. Not with mystery, not with manipulation, just with silence where there used to be justification. You want power? Not the loud kind, the kind that leaks from restraint. Then stop giving them the whole story. Let them wonder why your eyes didn't blink when they pushed. Let them stay up at night, trying to figure out what you meant when you said nothing at all. See, people don't value what they're handed. They value what they have to reach for, what they have to work to understand, what they have to bleed a little, to hold. And when you stop handing out clarity, like a business card, they begin to chase it. But that means you have to get comfortable with being misunderstood, with being misquoted, with being blamed for things they only think they know. Let them. Because when you learn to sit with the tension of not being known, you become unforgettable. Not because they saw everything, but because you left something they couldn't unsee. You ever walk away from a conversation knowing you said less than they expected, but somehow they leaned in more? Good. Write that moment below. Just a fragment. Let it sting. Here's the edge. When you become clear to yourself, you stop needing to explain anything to anyone else. That's when your silence turns surgical. You speak less. They listen harder. You reveal less. They want more. It's not a game. It's a boundary. Because clarity, real clarity, is earned. Let them earn it. Speak 70%. Let the other 30 twist in their throat. Not because you're cruel, but because your truth is sacred now. You spent too many years spilling everything to people who turned your clarity into confusion just to keep you soft enough to use. Never again. Now you move like a question wrapped in calm. Now your eyes say what your voice won't. Now your presence whispers what your words refuse to confirm. And when they ask what's wrong, you smile and you don't answer. Because sometimes clarity isn't something you give. It's something they realize they no longer have access to. And that ache, that hunger to understand you, that's the ghost you leave behind. Let them chase it. Let them try to fill in the blanks you stopped filling for them. And you keep walking, quiet, sharp, undecoded. Because you're no longer the man who needs to be known. You're the one they remember, not for what you said, but for what they never figured out. 7. Dressing the spirit. Elegance without effort. There's a kind of silence that wears a suit, not because it wants to impress, but because it remembers the war it walked through to stand upright. Elegance isn't polish, it's control. Over the chaos underneath your ribs. You ever meet someone who looks like they're already halfway through their goodbye? Not sad, not loud, just still and exact. That's what I'm talking about. Not fashion, not trend, alignment. Where the outside matches the haunted stillness on the inside. Because a man who has suffered and didn't collapse, he earns a certain look in his eye. A look that makes noise shrink. So you start dressing different. Not for them. Not for applause. You dress like your soul deserves structure. Clean lines, solid fabric, muted tones that whisper, I'm not here to be remembered. I'm here to be left alone. And somehow, that presence draws more eyes than any peacock with a megaphone. They won't know why. They'll say things like, you look sharp. You carry yourself different. You feel calm. But what they're really sensing is the precision. Because you've stopped leaking, stopped broadcasting your insides to strangers with opinions. And now you move like your name's a secret. You open doors like you built the room. You sit like time owes you. And when you stand, you don't rush. You rise. Effortless isn't laziness. It's violence that chose stillness. It's panic that found rhythm. It's grief folded into posture and stitched into every step. You want elegance? Good. Then stop trying to be impressive. Be inevitable. Let the way you button your coat say what your mouth won't. Let your scent be the last word in the room. Let your silence feel curated. Ask yourself, when's the last time someone stared at you and couldn't tell if they respected you or were afraid to speak? Write that down below. Just a sentence. Let it breathe. Because once you realize you're no longer dressing for validation, you start dressing like a weapon. Simple, precise, unmistakable. Even your flaws get tailored. The rough edges become detail. The wear becomes texture. And your presence, it stops asking permission. You walk into places you used to beg to belong to and realize you've outgrown them. You don't need to shine. You just need to fit. Not into their world, into your own skin. And when that happens, they'll feel it. Not the clothes, not the cut, not the cologne. The quiet message stitched into your shadow. I know who I am, and I don't need you to agree. Let that echo. Let it wear you. Let it bleed into the fabric of how you enter rooms, and never apologize for leaving them colder. 8. The soft power of cultural intelligence. They think being smart is enough, but you already know better. You've been in rooms where the loudest guy had the least depth. You've seen the look in people's eyes when someone walks in, who knows the world, without needing to prove it. That look of pause, of recalibration, of quiet discomfort, because depth makes the shallow choke. Cultural intelligence isn't a passport. It's a scar from listening more than speaking. It's knowing that not every smile is friendly. Not every silence is peace. Not every tradition is truth. It's learning how to read what isn't written. You become fluent in tension, in ritual, in the way people fold their hands when they're holding back. It doesn't come from books. It comes from paying attention to what breaks people and what keeps them sane when the world doesn't speak their language. You don't just learn facts, you learn grief. Inherited, celebrated, hidden inside food, music, eye contact. You start seeing the ghosts that ride behind their eyes. And when you speak, you don't flex. You connect. Because your words aren't designed to impress. They're laced with patience, precision, respect for stories you'll never fully understand, but won't dismiss either. That's where the power is. Not in knowing everything, but in knowing you don't, and still walking into the room with your ears sharper than your tongue. You ever made someone feel seen just by asking the right question? One that wasn't on a script, one that made their mask slip, even for a second? Write it below. Just that one question. Don't explain it. Let it hang. Because once you learn how people move when no one's watching, you stop believing in surface truths, and you start becoming someone who doesn't have to speak loud to carry weight. You shift the energy with a glance, a phrase in their dialect, a pause when they expect aggression. You read the room, then rewrite it. Soft power isn't weak. It's tactical empathy, weaponized curiosity. Because when you know how people are built, you also know how they break, and when to step back instead of pressing the bruise. You don't manipulate, you don't beg, you understand. And that understanding makes you unpredictable. Because they can't bait you with ignorance, can't trap you in their echo chamber, can't drag you down into the noise they mistake for relevance. You've seen too much, felt too many worlds crack open under the weight of their own assumptions. Now, you carry that knowledge like a shadow, not heavy, Not loud, just there. In the way you listen when someone expects interruption. In the way you smile when someone else would scoff. It's not about being right. It's about being precise and leaving them changed without them knowing what shifted. This is what scares them. You don't speak to be heard. You speak to be felt. And once they feel you, they never forget how quiet power can be. Let that sit in your chest. Let it echo. Then walk out of the room like you knew what they feared before they even said a word. 9. Emotional intelligence as a silent blade. They think they can read you, but they can't, because you don't wear your wounds like a story anymore. You wear them like steel, hidden, polished, sharp. Emotional intelligence isn't kindness, it's control. It's the blade they never see, because you never raise it. You used to bleed for free, didn't you? Used to explain yourself mid-sentence to people who were never listening. Used to unravel every thread just to feel seen. And they still looked through you, nodded, smiled, moved on. But you're not that man anymore. Now, you feel everything and say almost nothing, not because you're numb, but because you've learned what happens when people mistake your honesty for an opening. So now you read them first. You let the silence stretch. You watch what they do when they don't think you're watching. You hear the crack behind their joke. You hear the need behind their anger. You hear the fear tucked neatly inside their charm. And you don't react. Because your power isn't in what you show. It's in what you notice. You've studied people long enough to know what breaks them, what calms them, what blinds them. So when they try to push you, when they raise their voice or bait your trigger or test your temperature, you stay cold, not frozen, not fake, just calibrated. Because fire doesn't scare a man who's burned quietly for years. Tell me, when's the last time you saw through someone and stayed silent anyway? Drop it below, no names, just the feeling. That's the cut. That's the moment you learned empathy isn't always soft. It's surgical. And the scalpel doesn't shake in your hand anymore. Because now you can sit in discomfort without trying to fix it. You can listen to someone fall apart without climbing in after them. You don't confuse reaction with care. You don't confuse noise with connection. You don't mistake guilt for responsibility. This is the shift. You start recognizing who deserves your energy by how your nervous system responds when they walk in. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you do is nothing. No defense, no lecture, no performance. Just a stillness that leaves them grasping for your approval in the spaces you used to fill. You don't chase understanding anymore. You let people show you who they are. And when they do, you don't correct them. You don't save them. You just know. That's the blade. They won't see it. They won't feel it. But they'll know something shifted, something precise, something final. And when you walk away, they'll still be trying to figure out where the cut was made. But you won't be there to answer. You never were. 10. Presence as the last form of power. There's a silence you earn, not by being quiet, but by being there, fully, unapologetically, unmoved. Most people exist like smoke, spread thin across 5 conversations, 10 fake priorities, 1,000 cracked screens, always halfway somewhere. You learned to stay, not in places, in moments, inside your own skin. That's presence, not the fake kind, the performance, not charisma, not charm. I'm talking about that heavy, undeniable, soul-thick stillness that makes people forget what they were saying, that makes the room shift before you say a word. You walk in, and everything slows. Not because you want it to, because it has to. You don't rush. You don't scan. You don't fidget. Because you're not looking for an escape. You are the gravity. You sit like a blade unsheathed. Visible. Calm. Final. And they feel it. The tension of a man who isn't trying to be anywhere else. Presence is power because it burns. It reflects. It forces people to confront the noise they carry, and most can't take it. They'll fidget, talk fast, fill the silence, because your calm makes them squirm. Good. Let them. You've earned this stillness. You've broken for it. You've bled out every version of yourself that begged for attention, chased distraction, needed noise. Now, you look someone in the eye, and they forget what lie they were about to tell. Because presence doesn't just observe, it strips, it dismantles, it watches without judgment, but not without weight. And they feel that, even if they never say it. You don't reach anymore. You don't lean in. You let the silence do what the words never could. And if they're strong enough, they'll meet you there. Most won't. Tell me, have you ever been so calm, someone thought you were angry? Write it below. Don't explain. Just let it sit. Because that's what presence does. It exposes. It doesn't perform. It leaves no breadcrumbs, no smiles for safety, no small talk to soften the blow. Just truth and breath and an unmoving frame that says without saying, I'm here. You'll adjust. This is the last form of power because everything else fades. Looks, status, noise. But presence, real presence, stays. It lingers after you leave. It haunts rooms you never revisit. It's the moment someone remembers they couldn't lie around you. And you never had to raise your voice. Because once you master your energy, you don't need to demand space. You become it. Now hold still. Let the weight settle. Don't move. Let the world spin. You've already stopped. 11th, kindness that makes people uneasy. They don't know what to do with it. Not that soft, hallmark kindness they can predict. Not the fragile, performative kindness that needs to be clapped for. I'm talking about the other kind. The one that makes people sit back, shift in their seat, double-check your silence for something dangerous underneath. Because it's there. You've been through enough to know what sharpness feels like, what violence looks like when it's dressed as care. So now, you offer warmth like a warning. You don't force it. You don't advertise it. But when it shows up, they know. They feel it. And they don't know whether to say thank you or run. Because kindness from a man who doesn't need anything from you is a kind of pressure. It's unnerving. Because it's clean. It's detached. It's surgical. You're not being kind because you want approval. You're not being kind because you're afraid of conflict. You're being kind because you fucking can be. Because you've already killed the part of you that needed to be liked for it. That changes the whole temperature of the room. They expect kindness with strings. You give it with scissors. They expect you to flinch when they cross the line. You stay still. Then offer them the choice to walk back across it or disappear. That's the thing they don't see coming. Compassion from a man who's buried enough to stop begging. Patience from someone who doesn't panic when left alone. Kindness from someone who could have gone cold and chose not to. That choice, it carries weight because you've met cruelty, slept beside it, shaken its hand with a smile. And still, you choose to hold the door open, without smiling, without performing, without expecting anything back. That's not softness. That's control. You ever offer someone genuine kindness, and they looked at you like you had a weapon behind your back? Write it. Don't name them. Just the moment. Let it land. Because kindness like this, it doesn't make people feel safe. It makes them feel seen. And being seen by someone who doesn't need your validation, who doesn't need your chaos, who doesn't need you at all, that's terrifying. They'll ask why you helped. They'll search your face for motive. They'll test it even. Try to stain it, bait you, cheap shot you. But that's where the real edge shows. You won't snap. You won't explain. You won't lower your tone to match theirs. Because your kindness isn't permission. It's your line. Cross it. And they'll find out just how quiet a boundary can be before it becomes a wall. So let them feel uneasy. Let them flinch at your calm. Let them wonder how a man who's seen the worst still chooses to be decent. Because that wondering, that's the fear of someone who realizes too late that kindness from the right man can feel a lot like power they'll never own. Let it sting. Let it confuse them. Let it speak. And when they finally realize your kindness wasn't an invitation, but a warning, you'll already be gone. And the door? Still open. 12. Humor as the mark of inner safety. There's a laugh that comes from pain. Not the obvious kind. Not nervous, not forced, not loud. It's the laugh of a man who's been dragged through fire, burned down to bones, and still found something ridiculous in the ash. That's not entertainment. That's survival. And when you carry that kind of laugh, the dry one, the crooked one, the one that sounds more like breathing again than comedy, you scare people. Because it means you've stopped bleeding and started watching. You ever watch someone unravel and crack a half smile, not because you're cruel, but because you've already lived through worse. Worse that didn't even have the decency to announce itself with sirens. Yeah, that's the kind of humor I'm talking about. Not the jokes they post for likes, not the memes that rot in group chats. Real humor, dark, quiet, grounded in the fact that you're still here, and somehow, still laughing. Not because things are okay, but because they don't have to be for you to grin. It's a warning, isn't it? When a man can joke about his past with no tremble in his voice. He's not broken anymore. He's free. Because pain that owns you is heavy. But pain that's been metabolized into laughter, that's light, sharp, uncatchable. You don't laugh to escape. You laugh to signal, I've been lower than this. Try again. And it throws people off. They're used to weakness that cries. They don't know what to do with a man who laughs like a weapon. It unnerves them, makes them wonder what else you've made peace with that would break them. That's the line. Humor isn't about being funny. It's about being safe inside your own hell. You can drop a punchline in the middle of grief. You can find absurdity in betrayal. You can laugh at the part of yourself that once begged to be rescued. Not because you disrespect it, but because you made it through, and now you carry that wound like a well-folded note in your coat pocket. You don't flaunt it. You don't hide it. You just smile and let people wonder what the joke really was. Tell me, what's the darkest thing you've ever laughed at, alone? Write it. Don't justify it. Let it speak. Because here's the shift. Once you stop needing to be taken seriously, you start moving through the world like a man who's already accepted every version of himself. You laugh at the part of you that used to apologize for laughing, and that makes you untouchable. Because they can't shame you anymore. They can't guilt you. They can't hold anything over you that you haven't already turned into a twisted story with a smirk at the end. So yeah, laugh. Even when it doesn't fit the moment, especially then. Let it slip out in rooms that feel too stiff, too sterile, too self-important. Let it cut through the air like a crack in the mask. And when they ask, what's so funny? Just smile. Not to be clever, not to win, just because the punchline was surviving them, and they never saw it coming. 13. The code of invisible discipline. They won't see it. Not the early mornings, not the cracked knuckles, not the nights you went to war with your own mind and still woke up clean. That's what they never understand. Discipline that doesn't show itself is the kind that runs the deepest. You don't broadcast your effort, you bury it. Inside rituals, inside habits so sharp, they slice the weakness out of you before it forms. There's no reward, no applause, no gold star for doing the thing when no one's watching. But that's the point. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it so the version of you that folded in the past never breathes again. Invisible discipline. It's not glamorous. It's not sexy. It's not content. It's what keeps you sane when the rest of the world is held together by dopamine and denial. It's in the way you make your bed like a soldier, returning from a war no one knows you fought. It's in the food you don't eat, the text you don't send, the drink you pour and walk away from without shaking. It's all the things you don't do that build the man no one sees coming. Discipline is a code, and the deeper you live in it, the less you talk about it. You don't need to say, "I'm focused." Your routine says it for you. You don't say, "I'm strong." You just don't break when everything inside you says, "It's time to fall." You ever walk past the mirror and see a version of yourself you fought like hell to become? Not perfect, but forged. Say it below. Just one sentence. Who's that version of you that no one clapped for? The one you built in secret. Because that's what this is, a secret. A quiet contract between who you were and who you refuse to be again. And the people around you. They'll see the surface. They'll say you're lucky, or gifted, or naturally like this. Let them. Let them believe in effortlessness, while you sharpen your habits like razors no one knows you carry. Because while they chase motivation, you build systems. While they wait for the mood, you move. And while they start over every Monday, you never stop. That's what they feel when you walk in the room. That stillness, that clarity, that weight. Not loud, not flashy, but undeniable. You're not trying to inspire anyone. You're just living like a man who honors his own code, even when no one's watching. Especially when no one's watching. And it shows. Not in what you say, but in the fact that you don't need to say anything at all. So keep the rituals, keep the order, keep the promises you made in the dark. Because one day, they'll ask how you became this solid, this calm, this unfuckwithable. And you'll just smile. Not because they finally noticed, but because you didn't need them to. 14. Self-respect in the mirror of small actions. It starts before the world sees you, before the jacket goes on, before the door clicks shut, before the performance. Self-respect begins in the quiet. The way you brush your teeth like it matters. The way you fold the towel, even when no one's watching. The way you don't rush through the parts of yourself that no one else will ever applaud. You ever look in the mirror and see a man you've been avoiding? The version of you that remembers every corner you cut and every standard you lowered when it got too quiet to pretend? That's the voice. The one that doesn't yell, doesn't mock, doesn't inspire, just waits. Self-respect isn't some big speech. It's the razor that's clean, the shirt that fits, the dishes that aren't piled up because you told yourself you'd do them tomorrow. It's the small things. Always the small things. Because those become the voice, and the voice becomes the weight, and that weight becomes the way you walk, or the reason you don't. See, most people don't fall apart in the middle of a crisis. They fall apart in the 5-minute choices they swore didn't matter. But you know, you've felt it. That slow decay of dignity, that comes from letting yourself slide a little too far too many times. You don't need a breakdown, just a week of lying to yourself in ways no one else will notice. And then you stop showing up. Not for the world, for you. So you claw your way back, one ritual at a time. You start shaving again, not because you care what they think, but because you care how your skin feels when you don't treat it like it belongs to a ghost. You clean the room, not because it's dirty, but because you need one space that respects your presence as much as your absence. And you look in the mirror, not to admire, not to judge, but to acknowledge. To say, I see you, and I'm not abandoning you today. That's all it takes, a small moment of defiance against the part of you that wants to drift. Tell me something. What's the smallest habit that saved you from falling apart? Write it. No fluff, just the habit. Because that's what self-respect actually is. It's not pride, it's not ego, it's consistency in the places no one claps for. And once it becomes real, once it starts stacking, you become a man whose silence feels solid again. Because you're not at war with the version of you no one sees. You're working with him, feeding him, protecting him. And that shows up in the way you sit, in the way you move, in the way you don't flinch when someone looks too closely. Because there's nothing to hide when your daily choices have already voted in your favor. That's the mirror. It doesn't lie. It doesn't judge. It just reflects what you've been feeding it. And you finally stopped starving yourself. Let that sit there. No lesson, no wrap-up. Just the weight of your own reflection, waiting for you to meet it. 15. The exit. Leave people with a shadow. You don't slam the door. You don't make a speech. You just leave. So quietly they feel it before they realize it. That's the trick. You don't make noise. You make absence. And if you've done it right, they don't remember what you said. They remember how it felt when you stopped saying anything at all. You don't need closure. That's for people still pretending something's left to fix. You just walk, with your spine straight and your name intact. Because you've done the work, the hard work, the kind no one claps for, the kind that stripped you down to bone and left you standing, with nothing but the pieces worth keeping. Now, you're clean, not innocent, but empty of apology. You used to linger, used to overstay your own healing, used to stay loyal to people who couldn't even carry your silence without cracking. But that man's gone, buried in the rooms you stayed in too long. Now you leave before the begging, before the guilt, before they try to turn your softness into a leash. You've got nothing to prove, nothing to scream, just that quiet look in your eye that says, you won't get to unfeel this. Because real presence leaves residue, and when it's gone, they don't miss the words, they miss the weight. You ever watch someone realize too late that you were the calm in their chaos? The gravity they mistook for stillness? Write it. No names. Just the moment. Let it echo. See, the goal was never to be loved loudly. It was to be remembered privately, in the quiet after the noise, in the breath after the apology never comes, in the pause between someone asking, why did he stop trying? You didn't stop trying. You just stopped performing. That's when they feel it, that slow burn, that shadow on the wall that doesn't match anyone in the room. Because even in your absence, you bend the air. You left without hate, without venom, just distance, measured, clean, like a blade that never needed to touch skin to cut bone. And the best part? They won't know how to talk about it. You'll live rent-free in the corner of their memory, where they store the people who should have stayed, but didn't, because they weren't ready, because they didn't listen, because they thought your silence was surrender, They never understood that silence was the signal, the calm before your disappearance, the warning before the void. And now? Now they're left with the echo of a presence they mistook for quiet. You didn't disappear. You became untouchable. You don't haunt them with guilt. You haunt them with who you could have been if they'd handled you with care. That's the exit. Not a goodbye. Not a door slam. Just the unmistakable chill of someone who left the room and took the weather with him. You don't need reminders. You know what to do. But if this hits somewhere quiet, somewhere sharp, leave something below. One word, one sentence, no explanations. And if this kind of silence speaks to you, you already know where to find more. Subscribe, turn the bell on, not for hype, but for the next time the world gets too loud and you need something that cuts through it. This is Darkside Demeanor, not content, a signal. See you in the shadows.